Good evening, everyone. Ooh, that's loud. You have now reached and managed to get through to the fun part of the GeONG, which is one of the funniest sessions and the best sessions that we actually had, and we have had hold this Fail Fest for the past 2 years where we were in residence, meaning here in the room. And it's been a super popular format, which is why we decided to have it today as well. In theory, or what you can see as a fail fest is the concept of celebrating failure as a mark of leadership. That's kind of what you can find on Wikipedia or any kind of the pages. And innovation and risk-taking and aiming to share key lessons learned. So FailFests have actually been part of some events, or kind of even standalone events, always with the same idea behind it. They are not so super common in the humanitarian world. There have been, I think, some run by UNICEF. I've also seen that like Mexico or other organizations have been running them. They are not so common yet, so I feel we're quite unique here at GeONG to have one. And what I'd like about the concept here is that you really can learn from the experience, and that's the part that we want to emphasize today, that we have 3 presenters, actually 4, one is a presentation by 2 people, that really are sharing experiences, key lessons learned from the organizations that they've been having in the past. I've just recently, or a few months ago, read a really interesting book. It's called No Rules. It's about the Netflix culture. What was interesting is that they actually have a culture of, if you have an idea or project that succeeds, yes, please go ahead and celebrate it. But if you had an idea of a project that actually failed, sunshine it, meaning really make it public, really discuss it with your peers so that everyone can learn from it. And I really like that. And so, but it does take actually quite a bit of courage to do so. So I'd like you all to put your hands together and clap for our presenters today, that they actually are ready to share the lessons learned and have the courage to present them today. What we're going to do is do one presentation and then Q&A to the presenters, and then take the next presentation and so on. And therefore, I'd like to introduce our first 2 presenters. That's Benjamin Hertfort and Sam Colchester. Benjamin is a researcher at HeiGIT, and he has been investigating crowdsourced geographic information for these past 8 years, and also developed tools which enable volunteers to contribute geographic information in a simple way. However, only when working on MapsWide did he also dive deeper into volunteer activism and learned about the extraordinary creativity which arises from the wish to be at the top. And Sam is the Impact Partnerships Team advisor from HOT, and works very closely with organizations that make up the Missing Maps project, and with that has also been in contact with MapsWide and Benny and HeiGIT, and they are now going to present engaging 10,000 volunteers in a month. What can go wrong?
Yeah, thank you, Sandra, for that introduction. Yeah, the funny thing is actually there was a fail before, which we are not going to talk about. So this is the second fail. We had a similar fail the year earlier, and we thought we would be really good prepared this time. But yeah.
So I'm just going to quickly introduce MapsWide to you. So MapsWide is a free mobile phone application and you can use MapSwipe to swipe through satellite imagery. And when you swipe through satellite imagery using the application, you look for features like buildings. So what you're really doing there is you're identifying populated places across the world. And this is really useful when you're trying to improve OpenStreetMap, because we're often trying to improve OpenStreetMap in very rural locations, but we want to know where the populated places are. And in order for the detailed mapping to happen in those populated places, we first need to run through that imagery and identify those populated places. So you can actually see it in the GIF on the screen right now, how this app is used. So you swipe through imagery, and when you see buildings, like these large buildings, you tap on a tile, and you're identifying that there are buildings in those tiles. And once you've done that, you then swipe through to the next tile, and you continue to look for buildings. So it's quite an easy humanitarian volunteering activity. It takes a few minutes to learn, and it's fairly engaging. So early this year, a very large organization approached MapSwipe because they wanted to engage a large section of their employees in a volunteering activity using MapSwipe. They actually wanted to engage 10,000 of their volunteers to use MapSwipe over a month-long period. So they wanted to use MapSwipe a lot, and a lot of their volunteers wanted to use MapSwipe. This engagement was agreed to on the basis that this organization would receive training for conducting this type of activity. And also it was agreed to on the basis that they make a donation to MapSwipe's Open Collective page to cover the costs of this engagement. Now, as Benny mentioned, we thought we were prepared for this. We thought we were prepared. We'd actually engaged with the same organization the prior year in a similar type of project, and there had been a lot of issues. So we were particularly concerned about there being issues this time around. And so we did prepare more often than we might have done before. But 2 weeks into the 1 month engagement, Benny started spotting some major issues, very major issues, with the data being produced by these volunteers. I'll hand over to Benny to talk about some of those issues.
Yeah, so you see it on the right-hand side of the slide, kind of. So this is what we expected, right? So our usual volume of mapping activity, and then just spikes and cuts the graph. It goes much further. And okay, we think, okay, nice, people are mapping, that's what we want to see, everything is expected, our system is not breaking, we can handle the data coming in, and we are fast enough, everything is going right. And I don't know, at some point you wrote to me and said, hey, I have this result here for this project, and I don't understand why it's not so good or why it looks so weird, can you check it? And it was already late, and I checked it, and I thought, yeah, I don't really know what's going on here, it's not looking perfect, but some other parts are looking as I would expect it. Do I really want to go deeper in this? And I said, maybe I can do it tomorrow, but then I said, nah, no. And I just went down to that rabbit hole, and I think this night I got to bed probably at 4 in the morning, because like the more I discovered, the more I realized we have a big problem going on. So let's check why we have a problem and then what happens there. So I dig deeper and deeper and checked, okay, we know we have a lot of results. Okay, that's what we expect. But then we check, okay, who is contributing how much, right? So you might be familiar with such a curve if you work with volunteers. So kind of it's often the case that many people contribute very little and a few people contribute a lot. But in our case here, this was even more extreme than what you would usually see in OpenStreetMap mapping or what we would expect in MapSwipe. We thought, okay, 10,000 people, all of them will use the app for a few hours a day, so it should be rather okay, everyone, maybe there are a few people that do more, others do less. Okay, for us it was like, yeah, 20 users out of 10,000 produced half of the data, which gives them a lot of power. One single user contributed 8 million results, and then that's the moment, like 3 a.m. in the morning, you start to think about it, and how is that possible, right? Like, how fast can you actually map something to reach that number? And yeah, the problem basically is now you rely on the fact that these 20 users or these top 100 users who, I don't know, contribute almost all the results, actually do what they're supposed to do, find the buildings in the imagery. Yeah, that's what you wish probably, and then connecting again to Sam's problem, hey, some buildings are not appearing where we have expected them, so we started to investigate what's going on. So we checked how fast are they mapping, and we had some information on what we would expect from all the projects we did before that activity, and we could say, yeah, if you do maybe something of half a second per square, it's still quick maybe, but it's doable. And then you realize, oh shit, our average here is too high, right? They're too fast. How are they doing this? So yeah, we just concluded that they're not taking the time to take a look at the imagery, they're just swiping through. And we never had that problem anyway, or it never was a big problem for us because so far the people who used the app, I think they were so dedicated and behind what we wanted to do that they just never did it. Yeah, but technically it would have been possible all the time. But now we had a group of people who were just gaming the app and going through as fast as possible and not mapping any buildings. But it didn't stop there. It was, okay, you can accept that maybe if you give your kids the phone, probably they would have done it as well. Right? They try to be as fast as you can, easy. But some of our users were even more creative. They thought, maybe they have a system in place to detect this behavior. So let's every now and then add something which looks like could be actually a true result. So what you see here in the pattern kind of is just randomly placing tasks and saying, here is a building. Yeah, and this you can't do like manual anymore. So this is something probably automated where somebody put the energy into it to write a script, to upload results, to appear on top of the list of users. Right? So I appreciate the time that it took and to look into it and really to learn how our system works. Yeah, that's great. I think put the same time into it and join our tech team, which is not too big to be honest. So would have been also well spent time. Yeah, but long story short, basically, you already understand these results cannot be used, right? And basically it means, you have to throw away a lot of the things, and it also compromises all the work of all the others. Because how we do it usually kind of is that every task is done by several people, and the majority decides, more or less. But if you cannot trust the majority anymore, because more than 50% of your data needs to be removed, then I think our system falls down a bit. So what did we do, kind of, and why does it matter? So we had too many outliers to see that here's this, I don't know, here. There should have been also buildings mapped, right? So, Sam, other people, Eureka and stuff, they could not really rely on that data anymore. So we had to kind of first prevent this behavior, so block users, remove their results to get something, because you were relying on the results, right? We wanted to use them in mapping projects the next week, and we know it's going so fast, we can do a lot of mapping now. So actually we were super excited, and we wanted to really push some projects through, and also urgent ones, because we knew it would be swiped in half a day. Yeah, we were wrong. Yeah, I don't know. So what did we learn?
The important thing to mention here as well is that the leaderboard of activity was extremely important to the volunteers, clearly. And what we were fascinated to discover is that the actual prize for the winning volunteer was, in a sense, very insignificant. It was a digital certificate. So it was pretty much made in PowerPoint and presented to the winner of the competition.
Well, basically, I thought, okay, if it's an iPhone or something, you know, I could have not really understand it probably, but yeah, maybe I would understand why people go that far, but nothing except being number one. I think that's the biggest surprise in all that story for me. And I was a bit relieved when I found out that it was not the iPhone or something else, but only being human, kind of.
Yeah, so but then the prize was clearly in the competition. And the organisation was a tech-oriented organisation. So they were probably pretty tech-minded people, and they were competitive with each other. And they were trying to outdo each other. A handful of volunteers, maybe under 10 volunteers, destroyed the contributions of 9,995 other volunteers. So they destroyed the volunteering time of a huge number of people. And on the positive side, I'll probably hand over to Benny for this, but there were some very positive things to come out of this. The tool MapSight is more robust than ever, and Benny can probably speak to that later.
So after days of working on it and finding out how they do it, how we can block it, I think now we have a better approach towards preventing this kind of behavior. And I think also what we learned, what is important for future things like this, to have these monitoring systems in place that you can react quickly. So if you do such a large-scale activity, it's not enough to jump into the problem when you realize something's going wrong, but you need something more than we had at the beginning, right? We had our figure of how much mapping is happening, but that did not inform us if it goes into the right direction. And I think now we are better prepared for this. We have these things in place. We know how we can prevent this behavior better than before. But let's see what happens next year. Yeah, I think that's it for today. Happy to answer your questions.
Thanks guys for having such a good sense of humour about all of this. My question, Benny, you just said that you had mitigation strategies in place to stop this from happening again. Could you expand on that for us?
Yeah, I cannot see it, that's true. No, so basically what is a very easy thing to prevent kind of is that you just map too quick, right? So now if you go to the app and try to be as quick as you can, your results will not be uploaded. I think it's so simple actually, we could have had it before, but we never thought about it. So that's one thing, but also so that's on the app side, right? But also on the back-end side, we have things in place that I know can easily display all the results of a single user, which I couldn't before. So before I would need to run some scripts, try to put this and that together, and it took always like half an hour or a few minutes. Now I can just, if I have the suspicion that something's going wrong for an individual user, I can just take a look at all the results at once super quick. And that is enough, I would say, at least to get started.
Hi, thanks guys. I wonder if you fed this back to the organisation and maybe did this presentation to them, or how?
We were actually quite lazy when we put these slides together. We pretty much just repurposed the slides that we presented to the organisation. So we did take them, we took this to them. they were extremely, they were very sorry immediately. They understood immediately what the issues were, and they expressed shame and sorrow immediately, which is that similar situations have happened before with other organisations, and they're actually not always that quick to either understand or apologise for what's happened. I would say that one thing we really wanted to learn from them was what exactly those people who were gaming the system were doing. We can make inferences from looking at the data, from the pattern of their behaviour, but we don't actually know what some of them are doing, and we'd love to know. We did ask them to reach out to those people and get that feedback, but we actually never heard from the individuals directly. I think there's probably some shame involved, and it's tricky to get that information. Yeah.
No, just a technical question. You said they destroyed the work of thousands of other users. If you could identify them, why couldn't you sort of save the work of the other? Maybe I'm missing something.
So partly we could save it. So for the projects we identified as the most urgent ones, we could remove the results that we could not trust, but it leads you to kind of very spread out pattern where only a very tiny part of your project area actually is well mapped, and you have a lot of black holes again, where here we got only fake results. So we put those projects again up to the app, try to put everything together we have to fill these gaps, but we could do this maybe for 10 projects out of 100. So yeah, the other 9% I think were never used.
Great. Well, thank you very much for our two presenters. And I know there are probably no more questions, but we have to move on. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. I'd now like to present or introduce our next presenter, which is Victorien Hanché from ICRC. He's a data protection legal advisor at ICRC. He joined first the delegation in Paris in 2015 and then moved on to HQ in 2016. And he's in charge of the health, economic, security, and GIS programs, basically. And he's going to talk about facing a data breach in humanitarian action. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this introduction. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. Just before starting, I realized after the day that I have a lot to learn in editing PowerPoint and slides, so my slides are quite boring, like your slides, basically. So apologies for that. Very excited to be here. And let's start by second definition. Let's speak about first. Well, seriously, just like to make sure that we speak about the same. Okay. Oh yeah. Just to make sure that we are speaking about the same things. When I'm mentioning personal data, I'm using the definition, the common definition that you can find in every legal framework, the GDPR, the national legislation. The definition is actually really, really broad. Personal data means any identifier, such as name, visual material, identification number, location data. Information is linked to the physical, physiological, genetical, mental, economic, cultural, society identity. So everything that can allow you to identify an individual by using only certain data, by a combination of others. That's why it's really important when we think that, for example, data are anonymized, simply because we have a code that represents the name of person. It's not really the case, because there is always a way to re-identify the individual. So that's why it's really important to consider that even data that you may think are not personal are really personal. Processing operation means any data set. When I'm speaking of processing data, it's everything that you can do on data sets. Collecting data, storing data, deleting data. So just a short presentation of the ICRC data processing ecosystem to give you a rough idea of who is responsible of what at the ICRC regarding processing of data. So the ICRC is present in more than 100 countries. We have 20,000 employees around the world. We process actually 4 main categories of data. The protection data that are operational, so the restoring family links activities, so all the activities that led, that we use, all the data that we use to actually reunite families that have been separated within a conflict or natural disaster. That's really important because that's the data that we're actually after. Detention activities, so we visit detainees in prisons. Forensic activities and protecting civil population, so it's all the violation of the international humanitarian conflict. We process actually also assistance data, so L data, economic security data, GF data, administrative logistics and forensic data. Forensic data it's always something that we tend to forget actually when we are processing data of donors, we are processing personal information. And of course, HR data. We do have an ICT division, so I don't have the number of people inside the ICT division, but it's quite big. But what is important is that we have personal data hosted internally, both at HQ and in the field, into the delegation in the office, and also externally. I cannot give you the ratio between externally hosted data and internally hosted data, but I can tell you that there is a strong tendency today to bring data at home, simply because it's safer, legally safer, and also technically safer. We have an ICT support of approximately 1,000 persons, up to level 3 support, that's in Europe, Asia, South America, and Africa. We have a cyber security team, so a team only dedicated to cyber security of approximately 8 people, internal and external, based in Geneva. We have the data protection office, which is really the cornerstone of our ecosystem for data security and data protection. So we are more or less 16 with the consultant, 18 only dedicated to data protection, with 1 DPO, 1 deputy, 3 deputy DPOs covering the region, 5 legal advisors, 3 technical advisors. It was really important to include technical advisors into our team, actually, because we realized that as lawyers, we could be very familiar with the law and the principles to apply to processing operations. But sometimes we were coming to IT and saying like, okay, explain us why this is safer. And the IT was just explaining, because we implement this and this and this. But for us, it was like impossible to understand. So it was important to include technical advisors through translation between IT and the legal side. We have one communication officer. As you may know, the ICRC benefits from immunity of jurisdiction. It means that we do not apply domestic legislation when it comes to data protection. We apply our own rules. There is non-data protection authorities that can actually control us, to find us, but we had, for that, to be accepted as independent data controller, we had to set up an effective remedy. So we had to set up our own data protection authority. So that's the role of the Data Protection Commission, which is an independent commission with 5 members, external members of the ICRC. That is there just to control us and verify that as the Canadian friends or the ICO in UK, to make sure that everything goes well at the ICRC. So what happened in January, last January, 2022, this attack on the CTA servers. So how and when did we find out this attack? So it was last January. We actually hired, we were trying to enhance and make stronger our data security system as a whole. So we decided to hire a company to support us, cyber security company to support us. And this security company started to run scripts to monitor, scan the activity on our servers. And they realized that actually something went wrong, that there was like suspicious activity. So I'll explain a bit later what we did at this point, but basically we chose after that to do a deep dive, so to dig into the data, and then we realized that actually, yes, we had data of more or less 515,000 people worldwide that's been accessed. For approximately 2 months and a half. What information was accessed? So we are speaking about names, location data, and contact details of this person. So this person are mostly data, they are people that were entering into our database because they were part of our restoring families activity. So it's people that lost a family member due to armed conflict, situational violence, migration. There are also detainees. There was victim of natural disasters. So that's quite a lot actually. It's one of the main activity of the ICRC. Where does it copied and exported? We don't know, but we have to presume so. I mean, we need to be honest. That's a huge. There is a huge probability that actually yes, the data have been exported. However, so far we have no information. We didn't find the datasets online. It was not leaked. It was not sold. So we presume that yes, there's been probably exported, but it's not outside. I mean, it's not. It's in the hand of the hackers, but not online. How the hackers get into our system? Actually, they pass by critical vulnerability that was not patched. We missed a patch, and I will come back on that a bit later. But they use a vulnerability in our authentication system that allow them actually to export administrator credentials, disguise themselves as normal users, and then get up to the super user administrator passwords, and then disguise themselves as legitimate users into the system. And yeah, basically. How the hackers were into our system? So we identified the breach on January 18, and the analysis showed that the breach occurred on November 9. So it's been like for 70 days. They were inside for 72 days. One point is really important, is that this attack was not only highly sophisticated, but also very targeted. Why highly sophisticated? Because they really use advanced tools that you can find publicly. You need either to code them yourself, or to get them through, let's say, nation-state support. That's why we speak about advanced persistent threats group. That actually actors are so big. I mean, what they do needs so much resources that they are obviously supported, sponsored by a state. It was also targeted because the piece of the malware that were used were actually using the MAC address, so the identity of the ICRC servers in this particular instance. So it was really targeted for us. And also, the malware was actually designed from the beginning to bypass all our security system, anti-malware protection. So it was, I mean, the hackers put a lot of resources in this attack and made it specifically tailored for servers. And then, is it an organizational failure? Something went wrong with our defenses, for sure. It's true that the patching process, so I was telling you, it was a patching issue. We didn't install the patch to secure this vulnerability on time. So that's for sure something that was wrong. Just like when I was preparing this intervention, I asked to our my IT colleagues how many patches we implement per year. It's about like 32,000 patches per year for an organization of the size of the ICRC, and for that one. It was publicly available. We received the information that we had to install this patch, and unfortunately, it went through the system. And yeah, we didn't say. But the good point, the good side of it is that we react quite fast compared to industry standards. So just to clarify something, it was a first for the ICRC, and I think for the humanitarian community at large, an attack of this size. So it was really a crash test for us to test our procedure to react. What went wrong? So we react quite fast. We react in 72 days, knowing that according to IBM, in the last data security report, 2021, yeah, it takes an average of 212 days to identify a data breach of this size, plus 75 days to fix it. So for a total life cycle of 287 days to fix a data breach. So considering that in 70 days, but there is a cost to react so fast, and I will come back, but yes, considering that we reacted in 72 days, we can consider it as success in a way. The good thing also is that the incident didn't affect the rest of our information, because we segmented our data. Something that is really, really important in data security. In your data security architecture, so we segment our data in data sets, servers. So actually, the attack only affects one instance in which one particular location, and not all our information. We did quickly also inform. That's another obligation as a responsible data controller. When a breach occurs, you need to inform the person that may be affected. So when we realized that the breach was ongoing, we started to think like, how can we reach 500,000 people to inform them about what happened? People that were removed due to migration, that may be in the same location, maybe they don't have communication means. So we decided to do blanket information. We use phone calls, hotlines, public announcements, poster, letters, TV spots. I mean, the best way we can do. And also for remote area, we went directly on the spot. So the work is still ongoing. It's not done. So we are now in October. It's going to be 1 year soon. And we are still trying to reach out some of the individuals. And also we communicate publicly. That's also another step that is really important. It's a legal obligation. It's also a question of reputation. We publicly communicate on this incident with a Q&A, a list of contacts for the people that may be affected, that we didn't reach, so they have a way to contact the ICRC. And for also people, authorities that may be interested to know a bit more how we handle a phase of the breach, so they can reach us. So the impact and lesson learned. The impact, operational impact was huge. Of course, the first thing that we did is like employment. We realized that there is a data breach, we employ. So when you have operations that are based for a decade on a digital system, from one to another, the website database is not accessible. So we had to come back to paper and pen for about 10 days, 15 days max. So it was in some locations we just like stopped the operation for the time of the maintenance of the website and then to understand exactly what was going on. For in other circumstances, we limit operation, but for sure there is a cost. It's detainees that we couldn't visit, it's families that maybe couldn't be registered. Another impact, good impact, is that no data were deleted. That's the good thing. The data were leaked, but at least accessed by an authorized party, but no data were deleted. That's another type of issue. If you realize that data has been deleted completely from the database, or from the database and you have no backup, that could be an issue. As I was saying before, no data is in the market so far. We're still monitoring every day. It costs a lot in terms of resources, human resources, there is financial cost also, but we continue to monitor. And maybe impact about the trust of the people. So we, as soon as, at the same time that we informing people about the data breach, we also ask them whether they still trust us as trustworthy data controller. So you would say like they don't really have the choice because we have with the national societies, Red Cross and Red Cross societies and the ICRC, we are basically the only ones to provide this kind of services. So it's easy to say like we want to continue to work with us when we are the only ones to provide this kind of activity. But most of them say that yes, they are still trusting us and they still want to work with us. So that was a good thing. So now the question is like, how can we prevent and respond to cyber threat in humanitarian data? On humanitarian data, sorry. So 3 key facts. The value of personal data keeps increasing. That's for sure. That's in growing and it's going to be the same in the next decade. So that's the risk of cyber attacks, especially in humanitarian context, even more than in contexts where it's stable context or in our countries, in EU. Because in humanitarian context, personal data can have multiple values, financial, but also political, military, operational value, and that's where it gets really tricky. The second bullet point is kind of my motto. Processing individual information is creating a risk for individuals. From the moment you are processing the information of somebody, so we are collecting information that doesn't belong to you, it's the information of the individuals, you are creating a new risk for this person. And you need to be really conscious of that. And finally, the last key fact, the targets will always be behind hackers. That's been the same since the beginning of the web and digital services. Hackers find vulnerability, we patch it, and then find another vulnerability, and so on and so on. Therefore, as responsible data holder, and I'm using the term data holder and not data processor or data controller, a legal term, and I put much more obligation. I'm not just going to stick to data security. It's our legal and moral obligation to do our best. Again, I didn't say to prevent and to prevent completely. No, we will always be still beyond. So to do our best to prevent and respond to cyber attack. So the first step in preventing, first of all, you need to build and maintain strong vaults. That's the technical dimensions. So again, I'm not a technical expert. I'm a lawyer, so it's not an exhaustive list. There's a lot that can be added, but that's very basic. Maybe it's common sense, but it's very basic and it's important to remind them. Invest in the architecture. Processing data in such a way as a financial cost, for sure. That's a reality that we need to consider. And this cost should be considered at the very beginning of every project. So at the initial design phase, when discussing the scope, the nature, and the type of the processing operation. So at the moment you design a project, and you want to collect a certain type of data, you need to think, okay, I want to collect this type of data. Let's say biometrics data. Okay, very sensitive. I want to collect medical data, very sensitive. I want to collect names or region. Maybe in this context it's less sensitive. Everything should be part of what is on the second bullet point, data protection impact assessment. So risk assessment. Everything should be taken into account to define what's going to be the cost, and you need to assume this cost. If you cannot, maybe it's better to think differently or to do another project. We refer to international recognized standards and benchmarks. So now out there is a lot of standard benchmarks. So the norm ISO 27001. Design different layers of security for different personal data. You're not going to store in the same way biometric data as you're going to store names. That's quite fundamental. Keep your data security architecture up to date through the years. That's exactly what happened for us. We didn't have a strong plan at this time to patch our vulnerability and to keep the architecture up to date, and we missed the patch, and the vulnerability was there. Keep and have access to exportable logs. It's really important. Why exportable logs? Because you want to be able to get the logs from, let's say, the provider, your cloud provider, or your service provider, or hosting provider, and you want to be capable to have them analyzed externally by another entity. It's not the provider, it's not you, to have clear and just analysis. And in the second fall of preventing, it's being a responsible data holder. It's all the human dimension. So let's say that you are actually holding at a place, they don't valuables that doesn't belong to you. That's exactly the same thing when you are collecting processing personal information. Think twice before collecting solid personal data. That's purpose limitation, data minimization. Do not collect data that are not necessary. It's not necessary to have a new risk. The new risk compared to what already exists. Close the door. That's the encryption. Encryption at rest, encryption in transit. Do not let the key on the door. That's quite obvious. That's everything that's going to be password management. I was discussing this during the lunch break. I remember in certain organization having actually the password of a medical database under the keyboard on the post-it. That's very common in an organization when you are sharing the same database. You try to keep the password on the post-it somewhere. Do not invite stranger at home. USB keys, phishing email. Another example, in an organization in the US, maybe 2 years ago, the data security team actually dropped in all the premises around 100 USB keys with malware on it, just to check how many people will take the USB key and put it in their laptop. And I mean, the number was like 70% or 80% of the people put the USB key in their laptop and infected the network. Limit the number of processing partners and bind them into legal agreements. Of course, the more parties you invite into the cycle, the more risk you create. So try to avoid having two processors or one processor and a second sub-processor. Bind them into legal agreements is really important. Pay attention to the jurisdiction applicable to processing partners. So I'm not speaking about like cyber threats or possibility to be hacked. I'm thinking about like authorities that may access your data because their national law authorizes them to do so. I'm thinking about like Russia or the US, where there is a strong counter-terrorism law and a weak data protection law. They actually allow the US authorities to have access to the data stored and processed by every company, US company in the world. So even if the data are stored in Europe, because the privacy issue is there, there's an agreement between the EU and the US to protect EU data. It's not the case anymore. So basically, the US authority could ask Microsoft to provide data of the ICRC that is stored in Paris, let's say. I know that it's really not easy because actually the solution provider are from the main solution provider are from the US, are from China. So there's a big dilemma. So either you get everything at home with all the electricity and the knowledge that you have, or you store it outside with the risk that it could be accessed by authorities. monitoring system with the tools to entertain data from them necessary, inform and train your colleagues, and recruit, again, thinking about investment, if you can, especially staff member. Having a DPO in a medium and large organization is a legal obligation. So, responding, how to respond, unplug, identify the breach, evaluate the assess the breach, mitigate, inform the data subject, the individual, so that's transparency obligation, communicate, that's reputation. Remember in 2016 when they didn't declare that the breach, and now they're in justice for that. And be resilient. In short, it is possible to meet the needs of the professional activity while fulfilling our legal and moral obligation as responsible data holder, but there is a cost, financial, organizational, political, and the risk zero does not exist. We are proof of that. There's a time where I'm quoting Ben Parker from Spider-Man, with Ben Power comes responsibility. We do have a huge power, and for that we need to meet our responsibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This was amazing, and it's not easy to share these type of information and so honestly and so upfront at an audience like this. So we are very honored that you have actually been doing this and being very upfront about everything, and even also with your tips and everything. That's amazing. Thank you so much.